Nancy Moore was 28 years old and worked in the accounting department of an insurance company. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon when her husband Jack called her. "Hi, Nancy. Are you going to be late at work today?" Nancy sensed that something was wrong in Jack's voice. "Are you okay, Jack?" "What's wrong?" Nancy asked. She was a little concerned. "I'm fine. I got home early today and wanted to know if you'd be home by 5:30. "There's no overtime today. Do you want me to leave?" Nancy asked. "Don't worry, I'll just rest for a while. See you later." Jack hung up. Nancy was sure that something was bothering Jack. She immediately went to her boss's office. Nancy, we need to stay late today. There are a few things that need to be finished," Alan Perkins reminded her with a broad smile, not letting Nancy get a word in. "Alan, I came to ask permission to leave early." "Are you okay?" Alan frowned. "Yes, everything's fine. It's just Jack. I think he's not feeling well. He just called from work." "Do what you have to do, Nancy. We'll make up for it next time." She looked at her boss and nodded. When Nancy entered the house, she found Jack dozing on the sofa. "I'm home, dear." She woke him up. "Are you feeling okay?" "Yes, of course." Jack sat up. "I'm a little tired. You're early." He glanced at his watch. "I left right after you called. I know you, Jack Moore. Something's bothering you." Nancy sat down next to him on the couch. "The thing is, we need to talk." Jack turned to her and looked Nancy in the eyes. "Oh, God," Nancy thought. "Not bad news." She took a deep breath. "What do you want to talk about, Jack?" she asked anxiously. "I don't know where to start. You have to admit that we've grown apart lately." Nancy frowned. "I'm going to be honest with you, Nancy. I've fallen out of love with you." "What?" Nancy gasped. "Honey, we're married. We have so many plans for the future. You know that in a couple of months I'll stop taking birth control. As we agreed, at the beginning of next year we'll start a family, we'll buy a house and—" "I know, Nancy," Jack interrupted her. "I've met someone else." "Someone else?" Nancy asked, struggling to hold back her tears. "Yes, a younger woman, and we love each other. I'm sorry, but it's not easy for me to tell you this." "But Jack, how could you do this to me? To us?" Nancy was still trying to understand what was happening. "We've known each other for 5 years and been married for 3. Over the last 6 months, you've changed and started neglecting me." "I've never neglected you, Jack. I've always been there for you." "You started working overtime every week, sometimes twice a week." "But Jack, I'm doing it for us. We need the money to buy a house." "Then you started going to parties with your coworkers every week, and after that, you went shopping for hours every Saturday." "I work so much, Jack, I need time for myself." "Have you ever thought about me?" Jack almost shouted. "Instead of going out with your coworkers, we could go on a date once a week. On Saturdays, we could go shopping together." Nancy looked at the floor. Now she realized what she had done. "Please, Jack, I love you. We can work this out. Nancy, 3 months ago when I talked to you about these problems, you got angry. You even raised your voice at me, remember?" "I'm sorry, Jack, if I hurt you. 3 months ago, I didn't take it that way. Now I realize that I was only thinking about myself. Please, Jack, give me another chance. Let's work on our marriage." 3 months ago, I was in a deep depression. During lunch break, she came over and sat down next to me. She works in another department. She noticed that I was crying. She befriended me, and a couple of days later, she asked me what was wrong in my life. I told her everything. I needed someone to share my pain with, and she became a shoulder for me to cry on. It was her. Yes, Nancy, it was her. Gradually, we developed emotional feelings for each other and eventually fell in love. "What's her name? What does she do?" Nancy asked, tears welling up in her eyes. "Her name and what she does aren't important. It's better if you don't know her." Were you close? Yes, Nancy, I'm sorry. How could you? Nancy cried. Nancy, tell me, when was the last time we made love? It was... Nancy tried to remember. It was a month ago, and it wasn't love. We just had a quickie because you were very tired. You've been tired for the last 6 months. We've only had sex 3 times. But Jack, you should have asked. You should have suggested it. Nancy, sex is part of a couple's life. It happens naturally. There's nothing to ask about. So you got from her what I wouldn't give you? Yes, and even more. Nancy frowned. She does what you always refuse to do, Jack continued. But I didn't know you liked that, Nancy tried to argue. You always refused because you said you didn't like dirty sex. Since we've been together, I've tried several times to convince you to try something unusual, but you always refused. So she's better in bed than me, Nancy sobbed. I'd rather say that I like her better. She always tries to find my sensitive spots. I'm sorry, Jack, that I couldn't satisfy you in bed. Tomorrow you'll get what you deserve. I filed for divorce on grounds of incompatibility. Today, I took 50% of our savings. We'll both keep our cars. We both work, so there's no question of alimony. The lease on this house is up in a few months. I'm staying here. I'll move into the guest room tonight. You'd better call your parents and explain everything. I think you'll be living with them. And she's going to live here? No, she's not. She doesn't want to touch your things, our furniture, or anything that reminds her of you and our time together. We already looked at an apartment in the new Lakeshore Heights complex. We chose an apartment with a balcony overlooking the lake. The building will be ready in a couple of months, which is very convenient for me because I need to move out of here around the same time. Lakeshore Heights, Nancy thought. I was just about to move there and wanted to convince Jack to buy an apartment. Why don't you move in with her? Nancy asked. She has a roommate in a 2-bedroom apartment, and they made a rule from the beginning that no guests are allowed. Because of that, we always had to book a motel room, and sometimes we did it in the back seat of my car. Jack, I love you and want to spend the rest of my life with you and grow old together. Is there any way to save our marriage? I'll turn a blind eye to your 3-month trip with this girl. I'll never mention it, I promise. I'll give you everything she gives you. I'll never deny you anything. We can go to a counselor. Unfortunately, Nancy, I've already made up my mind. Jack stood up. I'm going to move my things into the guest room and get some sleep. What if I don't want a divorce? I'll fight for us. You'll spend a fortune on lawyers, and in the worst case, we'll just quit our jobs and move somewhere far away. I'll stay your husband, but I won't live with you. You can't do that? It's illegal. I can. There's no law in this country that says I have to stay here with you. Jack left. Nancy cried. Later, she called her parents and briefly explained the situation. Half an hour later, they were sitting next to her in the living room. How could he do that to you? Nancy's father, John, was furious. He can't just throw away 3 years of marriage because you didn't take care of him for a couple of months, Mary shouted. He should have talked to you and worked things out. It's my fault, Mom, Nancy said, wiping away her tears. I neglected him, and that pushed him into the arms of that woman. He needs to understand that you did all this for both of you. And you needed some time for yourself because of your stressful job, John said. I want to talk to him. Call him here. No, Dad, he's resting. You can talk to him in a couple of days when you've calmed down. Will you pack your things and come with us? We'll help you, Mary asked her daughter. I'm staying, Nancy said, leaving her parents sitting there in confusion. I'll try to get him back. Are you sure? Her parents asked at the same time. Yes. All right, we're leaving. But if anything happens, call us. Understand? Yes, Dad. Nancy went to her room and cried until she fell asleep. In the middle of the night, she woke up and went down to the kitchen. Next to the trash can, she found an empty pizza box. He didn't wake me up for dinner. He ordered food just for himself, Nancy thought. She drank a glass of water and went back to bed. The next morning, when she left her room, she heard the garage door close and Jack's car drive away. She got ready and went to work. Before lunch, Alan Perkins called Nancy into his office. "You've been acting strange since this morning. It looks like you've been crying. Is everything okay at home?" he asked. "Jack is divorcing me." "What? How?" He found someone else. He's in love with her." "I'm very sorry." "He said I don't notice him, and it's true." Nancy lowered her head. "He found comfort in a young woman who works at the same company." "Do you need some time off? You can take as many days as you want." "I'll let you know when I need it. For now, I'd better get back to work. I won't be long." "I understand." That day, Nancy cooked Jack's favorite meal. When he came home, the kitchen was filled with the aroma of food. He walked past Nancy without saying a word and went to his room. Later, he came downstairs, washed up, and changed his clothes. "I have a date with her," he told Nancy. "I made dinner for the two of you, and—" Nancy was ready to cry. "Don't worry about the food. From now on, we'll each live our own lives." "As you wish, Jack." "I don't know when I'll be back." Jack walked to the door. "I love you, Jack." Tears streamed down her face. Jack closed the door behind him. The next day, when Nancy returned home, Jack was already there. Nancy put down her purse and went to the kitchen to pour herself a glass of water. The doorbell rang. "You," Jack said without looking at Nancy. She frowned and opened the door to the man in a suit. "Are you Mrs. Nancy Moore?" "Yes, I am." "You have a court summons." He handed her a manila envelope. "Good evening, ma'am." The man turned and left. Nancy almost fell when she took the envelope. She had to lean against the wall. "Please sign it and let's move on," Jack said to her back. Nancy turned and looked Jack straight in the eye. "So, I've neglected you for 6 months, and you've forgotten all the good things we had. I promised you I'd change, and I have. I'll be a better wife and a better friend. Please, Jack, I'm begging you, give me another chance. It was a mistake. Can't you forgive me?" "A mistake? How can it be a mistake when you planned it all in advance?" "It's not what you think." "Tell me what to think. About the good times we had together? You ended that. And believe me, the time I'm spending with her now is much better than what we had. Just sign the papers, okay?" Jack went into his room. Nancy sat down and opened the envelope with trembling hands. She read the papers and signed them. Later, when she went to her room, she heard Jack talking on the phone. His door was open. "Yes, baby," he said. "She got the papers this afternoon. The clock is ticking. I love you too, honey. Stop taking those pills. It's a good idea. We can get married right after the divorce, with your swollen belly. You'll look stunning in a wedding dress." Nancy went into her room and closed the door behind her. "If only I could go back in time," she said to herself. The next day, she woke up early, left the papers on the kitchen table, and drove to work. There, she called her parents and told them about her situation. They asked her to pack her things and leave home. She simply replied that she would. Later, she told Alan Perkins that she had signed the divorce papers. "It's going to be very hard for you," he said. "You can't imagine. It's like the whole world has collapsed on me," Nancy sobbed. "Don't give up. You're still young. Maybe life has something good in store for you. Jack was my future, and I destroyed it. Maybe we should go out for a drink after work to take our minds off things," Alan Perkins suggested. "It all started with drinks after work, remember?" Nancy turned and walked to her desk. Every day, Jack came home later and later after dinner at the restaurant. At home, he made himself sandwiches. He went shopping alone. Nancy began to behave more provocatively at home, wearing shorts and a tank top without a bra. Sometimes she would walk into the kitchen wrapped in a towel when Jack was there. She turned on the music and songs he loved most. Sometimes she leaned over him. In the evening, she always waited for him and tried to strike up a conversation. Sometimes he refused, pretending to be tired, and went to his room. But sometimes he sat down and listened to her. She never mentioned the other woman. She always tried to remember their old memories when she saw the sparkle in his eyes and the smile on his face, but then he would change the subject. On weekends, Jack would mow the lawn or find something to do so he wouldn't have to see Nancy. In the evening, he would leave alone and come back very late. One Friday, she called Jack and asked him out on a date that evening for dinner and dancing. He agreed. She was very happy. Even her colleagues noticed the change in her. She came home early and got ready. She did her hair and carefully applied her makeup. They had a nice dinner and talked about everything except their current situation. At one point, Nancy felt that everything that had happened over the past 6 months was like a nightmare from which she had just awakened, leaving everything behind. It was as if they were still the madly in love couple they had been before. After dinner, they got drinks and sat down near the dance floor. A man approached Nancy and asked her to dance. She looked at Jack, who shrugged. She politely declined, and the man walked away. "Will you dance with me?" she asked Jack. Without saying a word, Jack stood up, took her hand, and pulled her onto the dance floor. They danced to 5 songs in a row. They moved to the rhythm of the music. When they returned to the table, a slow song began to play. Without saying a word, Nancy pulled Jack onto the dance floor, pressed herself against him, and rested her head on his shoulder. He could feel her breath on his neck. For weeks, she had wanted to hold him, to feel his body close to hers and to love him passionately. "Let's go home," Jack whispered in her ear. Nancy smiled. On the way home, Jack concentrated on driving, while Nancy sat and hummed a few songs they had just danced to. After Jack parked the car in the garage, Nancy ran to her room, left the door open, undressed, and lay down on the bed naked, waiting for her husband. Jack walked down the hall, past Nancy's room without looking back, and headed for the guest room. Shocked, Nancy lay on the bed, trying to understand what had happened. She jumped up and rushed into the guest room. She opened the door without knocking. Jack was shirtless. "What happened? Why aren't you taking your wife? You haven't touched me in weeks and I'm burning up." "Nancy, we're getting divorced. We can't be intimate." "We're still married and I'm still your wife. Please, dear, make love to me." She walked over to Jack and tried to hug him. He pushed her away and sat down on the bed. "Take everything that's yours, Jack. Do whatever you want with me. I'll never say no to you." She sat down next to him and tried to kiss him on the lips, but he turned away and she kissed him on the cheek. "Please, Jack, don't leave me. Don't divorce me. I love you. All I'm asking for is your forgiveness. I know we can work things out. Let's just forget these stupid 6 months as if they never happened. You can do it, Jack, because you don't hate me." "It's a little late, Nancy." "It's never too late, Jack. Your weakness led you to another woman. You were vulnerable because of the situation I created. I was foolish, selfish, and self-centered. I've learned from my mistakes, and I promise it will never happen again. I'll be the best wife in the world." Jack said nothing, his gaze distant. Nancy knelt before him and took his hands. "I'll be your slave, Jack. Your will is my law. You can beat me every day, punish me for what I've done, humiliate me, but Jack, be my husband, until death do us part." She cried. "I can't!" Jack looked her straight in the eyes. "But why can't you?" "Because I can't betray her." Nancy stood up full of rage. Her, she screamed. "Who is she anyway? Can't you see she's ruined our home? That bitch seduced you and played on your weakness. She knew you were married, and that didn't stop her from spreading her legs. How do you know she won't betray you?" "She won't. No matter what you say, she'll do something worse." Resigned, she walked to the door and stopped. "I'm tired, Jack. This divorce is killing me. First thing tomorrow morning, I'm calling my parents to come and help me pack," she said without turning to him. "I'm very sorry for my mistakes. I'm sorry for the pain I've caused you. I wish I had been wiser. I wish you a happy life with your future wife." She went to her room with her head down. The next morning, Nancy's parents arrived early. "Dark circles under your eyes. Didn't you sleep again?" Mary asked. Nancy didn't answer. "You should have left as soon as he dropped that bomb on you," John said to his daughter. "I know, Dad, but I wanted to get him back." "Just forget about him. The world is full of young men who will fall in love with you at first sight," Mary said. "I want to talk to that jerk. Wake him up." John was furious. "Leave him alone. You're wasting your time, Dad. Mom, help me pack my things, please." "You wanted to talk," Jack said, coming down the stairs. "Yes, you jerk!" John blushed with anger. "You're a real bastard." "Dad, please." Nancy shook her head. "I have to tell that piece of shit what I think of him." John turned to Jack. "Because of your male ego, you can't accept that your wife has a right to a personal life. She works very hard, overtime. And for what? To earn extra money so you two can buy a house, just like you planned. Maybe she went overboard with the girls' nights out and Saturday shopping trips. But she needed to relax. She admitted her mistake and apologized. And what do? You cheat on her with the first whore you meet and order her a massage." Jack was silent and stared intently at John. Nancy took her father by the arm and tried to lead him upstairs to her room. "The first day you brought him to our house, I knew he wasn't right for you, Nancy. You were so in love that I kept quiet and prayed I was wrong." "Come on, John," Mary reassured him. "We have more important things to do." Mother and daughter took John by the arms and led him upstairs. Jack opened the door and saw John's van in the middle of the driveway. He decided to walk 2 blocks to the nearest cafe. 3 months later. The day before the hearing, Nancy took a few days off work. She went to her parents' country house for a few days. She wanted to get away from people. She knew the judge would grant the divorce, and she didn't want to show up in court. She didn't want to be bothered by friends and colleagues. She asked her parents to turn off their cell phones. The next morning at 11 o'clock, there was a knock at the door. All 3 looked at each other. No one knew who it was. Mary opened the door and saw Jack standing on the doorstep. "I need to tell Nancy something, and it would be good if you were there," Jack said to Mary. "How dare you come here, you bastard! Get off my property!" John shouted. Nancy was silent, not knowing what to do. "I've been calling everywhere and even went to your house. It looks like you all turned off your cell phones," Jack said to Mary, ignoring John. "I knew you were all here." He was still standing at the door. "What do you want, Jack?" Nancy mustered up the courage to ask. "The judge approved the divorce at 10 this morning. As of today, we're free." "You came here just to tell my daughter she's free again?" Mary raised her voice. "Get out of here before I break your jaw," John pointed at Jack. "My daughter has been suffering for the last 3 months, and you come here today to hammer the last nail in her coffin." "I've been suffering for 6 months and no one noticed," Jack shouted. Everyone was stunned by Jack's sudden outburst. He pushed Mary aside and entered the cottage. "There was no she, her, or colleagues," Jack barked at Nancy. "I never cheated on you, Nancy. It was a setup." "But why?" Nancy was stunned by Jack's revelation. John and Mary stood rooted to the spot. "Why? Can you prove it?" Jack asked. "Prove what?" "That you never cheated on me?" Nancy suddenly felt her legs give way and she couldn't stand. She collapsed into a chair. Jack turned to his former in-laws. "For 6 months, that bitch slept with her boss, Alan Perkins." The room fell silent. John and Mary couldn't believe their ears. They looked at their daughter. She couldn't look at them. She started to cry. "All those overtime hours, bachelorette parties, Saturday shopping trips, you were sleeping with him in motels or in the back seat of his car. I hired a private investigator to follow you, and I have DVDs, lots of DVDs. Please, honey, John begged Nancy. Tell me it's not true that he's lying. I'm sorry, Nancy cried. I could have divorced you with all the evidence, but I wanted to do something to make you suffer, to make you feel what I felt, to make you understand what it means to be betrayed. I wanted you to hurt, to suffer, to bleed. Jack spat. You did to him what you always refused to do to me. You know what I'm talking about. You let him humiliate me. You gave him what belonged to me. You didn't respect me. You didn't have time for me. But you spent every moment with him. You're the worst whore I know. Nancy cried even louder. Mary hugged her husband tightly. Turn on your phone. You must have hundreds of calls from work and from Alan. Nancy frowned, picked up her cell phone, and turned it on. She had many missed calls and messages. Since we were still married yesterday, I asked my lawyer to file a lawsuit against the insurance company and Alan Perkins. In our state, love at first sight still exists. Oh no, Nancy cried. According to my lawyer, we could get up to 7 figures. The only good thing about your cheating is that you'll bring me some money, Jack laughed. Nancy glanced at her phone. The missed calls were from work and from Alan Perkins. She read the last message. It was from HR asking her to call them back as soon as possible. She scrolled down to Alan's message. He was ranting. By the way, I contacted Alan's wife yesterday and gave her the DVDs. She said she would clean them and not let him watch them in front of the children. He has a family. Why did you do that? Nancy asked. I didn't do anything. You destroyed their family when you started spreading your legs. And you know what's funny? I'm going to move in with Mrs. Perkins for a while to rub it in Alan's face, because he'll still have to pay the mortgage while I'm pleasuring his wife in his own bed. You better leave, Jack, John said. We need to deal with our own problems. I'm not done yet, Jack growled at John and turned to Nancy. I'm sure you've already been fired from the insurance company. Alan, too. He satisfied you after work at your workplace and claimed overtime for you. I don't think he'll find another job in the financial sector. Nancy couldn't look at Jack. She just shook her head. By the way, last month I lost the bag with your famous DVDs, and this morning I found out that they were posted on the internet with your name, phone number, and address. Jack grinned. Don't worry about getting fired. I'm sure you'll find a job in the porn industry. Oh my God, Nancy fainted. Now I'm done. Jack walked to the door and turned to John. That bitch doesn't want anything to do with you and doesn't want to see you anymore. Let that slut rot in hell. He walked out of the booth. Of course, we all know that infidelity isn't the only reason for divorce. In fact, according to most studies, financial problems are the leading cause of divorce in this country. Sometimes marital problems are related to work, and sometimes people just grow apart. Selfish bitch, Brett muttered. More? Asked the pretty waitress, emphasizing her question by raising the coffee pot in her hand. Brett glanced at his watch. No, I have to go. He finished his coffee, left $2 on the table, paid, and left. He had a meeting with Terry, his soon-to-be ex-wife, the selfish bitch. He couldn't believe she thought she had a right to the Continental. It had taken him over 2 years to restore it. Sure, she helped a little, but that car had been his since the moment he saw it. It was his baby, his pride and joy. And now she wanted to take it away from him. Selfish bitch. When he pulled up to his former home, he was a little surprised to see that she hadn't put the house up for sale yet. They hadn't lived there long enough to accumulate any serious money, maybe 10 or 15,000, but neither of them wanted to live there anymore, so they decided to sell the house and split the proceeds. Everything was very civilized. In fact, as far as divorces go, Brett and Terry's divorce was as civilized as it could be. Except for the car. It was a 1960 Continental Mark V. Brett had seen it in the yard of an old farmhouse once while driving through Indiana. It was exactly like his father's had been when he was a kid. He wasn't usually a fan of classic cars, but there was something special about this one. Brett stopped to talk to the farmer. He told the gray-haired man in overalls and a bib that he'd be happy to take the old car for free, but the farmer wasn't stupid. He knew very well that even in its condition, the car was worth several $1,000s. They haggled and finally came to an agreement, but before Brett could spend that kind of money, he needed to talk to his wife. "What do you know about restoring old cars?" she asked. "Nothing, but I can learn," he replied. They discussed it for several days, but Terry wasn't convinced. It was a lot of money, and what if he lost interest in the old car? Would they be able to sell it and get their money back, or would it just rust away in their yard instead of sitting at the farmer's place? Brett had already done some research and assured her that they wouldn't lose a penny. Even if he didn't do anything with it, he could sell the car in its current condition for more than they had paid for it. In the end, it was her husband's enthusiasm that decided everything. With his wife's blessing, Brett arranged for the car to be delivered. A week later, when Terry saw it being unloaded from the truck, she changed her mind. But it was too late. They were now the proud owners of an old, rusty piece of junk. "I know it doesn't look very good right now, honey, but I'll bring it back to life. I'll make it young again," he said with a broad smile. Terry always believed in her husband. In her opinion, he couldn't do anything significant if he didn't want to, so she immediately decided that she would support and help him in any way she could. Of course, that was many years ago. Now the Continental was a line drawn in the sand by a failed marriage. "Selfish bitch," he muttered under his breath as he got out of the car and headed for the house. He felt a little strange. It was his first visit to this place in almost 5 months. He couldn't help feeling a little uneasy as he climbed the flat stone steps leading to the porch. They had worked so hard with Terry to make everything perfect. Oh, he knew the divorce was the best thing for both of them, and Terry felt the same way. Hell, it was the only thing they'd agreed on in forever. Still, they'd had many wonderful years together. Brett had just raised his hand to knock when the front door opened. He'd almost forgotten how beautiful she was. "Hi, Brett. Come in," she said, smiling and stepping aside. For a moment he forgot why he had come. A smile began to spread across his face, but then he suddenly remembered the car. He immediately went on the offensive. "Terry, I can't believe you think you have a right to the Continental. What would you do with it if it were yours? "Wait, Brett," she interrupted him. "Let's talk about this over a cup of tea. I just made some." Her pleasant smile and calm demeanor were disarming. Damn, he thought. She always made the best coffee in town? Why not? He began to relax a little as Terry poured him a glass of beer. It was nice to be back in his kitchen. He couldn't help himself. He watched her from behind as she walked over to the counter and put the kettle back in its place. A slight smile appeared on his face as he took his first sip of the hot black nectar. She turned to the table and sat down with her cup of coffee. "So," she said, looking him in the eye, "why do you think I'm not allowed to have a continental breakfast?" The conversation wasn't going the way he had imagined. He was all wound up. He had come ready for a fight, but there was no aggression in her voice. He thought they would be yelling at each other, but they never did. Even when they decided to part ways, the conversation was polite and attentive, but she had never mentioned taking his car before. Brett studied her expression. It was always difficult to read, but she seemed open to negotiation. Maybe she had listened to reason. Maybe there wouldn't be a fight. He would simply explain his position to her logically. When he was done, she would come to the only reasonable conclusion. The car belonged to him. "Terry, if you remember, I bought this car. I repaired it myself. Wait a minute," she interrupted him again. "The money for this car came from our savings. I put as much into that account as you did. I'd say we split the cost of the car 50-50, wouldn't you?" She was right. They both contributed the same amount of money to the savings account every month. And yet, he did all the work. "What do you mean you did all the work?" she continued. "Yes, you did most of the physical work, but who sat at the computer for hours figuring out all the details? That has to mean something." Damn, he thought. Another point for her. Things weren't going the way he expected, and she wasn't finished yet. "Sometimes I even helped you with the car." "Not very often," he interrupted, deciding he had earned a point. Maybe not. We both know I'm not a mechanic, and a lot of it was too complicated for me. I just didn't have the energy to help. But even then, I was there for you, supporting you emotionally." He had to admit that she really did do that. "How many times did I massage your neck and shoulders when you were upset, or kiss your boo-boo when you slipped and fell on the stairs?" Brett took another sip of coffee. He couldn't help but smile as his thoughts returned to the past. God, they were so happy back then. It seemed like all they did was laugh and have a good time together. He missed those days. Who would have thought back then that they would end up in divorce court? Brett sighed, lost in his memories, then returned to the matter at hand. "Terry, come on. You've never driven this car. The few times I tried to get you behind the wheel, you said it was like driving a tank, and you didn't want to risk scratching it. There's a first time for everything, Brett. Maybe you could come with me the first time, just to make sure I'm okay." God, he thought. What's wrong with her? Not only does she want to take my car, she wants me to teach her how to drive. "Here's what I'll do," he replied. "I'll come over on the weekends and drive you around." "And you?" she asked with a smile. "Sure." "How many times?" "I don't know. As many times as you want. Well, you know, if I don't have other plans." Said Terry, indicating that she was thinking about it. "Does that mean I'm getting a car?" asked Brett with some impatience. "No, I was just asking," she teased. "Okay, Terry, if I had known we were going to argue about this, I would have put it in the ownership agreement and let a judge decide. I just thought it would be a mistake and that I would keep the car. I never thought you would want it. Wouldn't it bring back bad memories?" "Bad memories?" she asked, looking a little puzzled. "Like what?" "Well, we spent a lot of time in that car. Remember how we decorated the back seat?" "You mean the one I spent 3 months looking for until I found one that wasn't all torn and worn out?" Damn, he thought. She's scoring points left and right. "Yes, that's the one," he admitted. "Of course I remember. He was already driving it then." We pulled up to the lake. "You said you wanted to show me how much room there was in the back." "And there was a lot of room," she said with a smile. "Damn, we tried almost every position possible. But those aren't bad memories. Why do you think that?" "Well, you know, I mean, because of how you treat me now, I just think you probably wish it had never happened." "You think so? You wish it had never happened?" Brett was surprised. He thought he heard sadness in her voice. A few months ago, when they were discussing divorce, there had been no sadness in her voice. She had sounded as if she couldn't wait to be rid of him. "Number. To be honest, those were some of the happiest days of my life, but—" "Then I don't understand, Brett, why those should be happy memories for you and not for me," she asked. "Well, I don't know, probably. Probably because I know you feel differently about me. Differently than I feel about you, I mean." "I understand. Maybe we should talk about this before the divorce is final. How do you feel about me?" Brett really didn't want to get into details. He felt awkward. He didn't want to admit that he still loved her, especially since he knew she no longer felt the same way about him. "Come on, Terry. I came to talk about the car. Let's not go there." Damn it, sometimes he could be so destructive, she cursed herself. "Okay," Terry said, getting up to pour herself another cup of coffee. "It's in my garage. You know, possession is 9/10 of the law," she said with a smile. "Damn it, Terry. You agreed to let me leave it here until I find a place to store it. You know very well I can't just leave it in the driveway. He was starting to get angry. She didn't want that. I know, she conceded. That's not what I meant. It's just... What? Brett interrupted sharply, now angry. Just what, Terry? I want to know what you meant when you said I had bad memories. Do you think I hate you? Brett sighed quietly. He didn't seem willing to avoid the conversation. I don't know. Maybe you don't hate me, but you made it clear that you don't love me anymore. So it stands to reason that you might regret those memories, that's all. No, I don't regret them. I don't regret any of the time we spent together. Should she say it? She had been trying to get him to admit it. She must have known how he really felt, but it seemed like she would have to make the first move. She decided to take a chance and say it. I don't hate you either, actually. The only thing I regret is that we broke up. Brett couldn't believe his ears. Did she just say she regretted that they broke up? What the hell? She was the one who said they had grown apart, that they had nothing in common anymore. Terry, you said yourself that it would be better if we got divorced and went our separate ways, remember? Yes, I remember, although I don't remember you disagreeing with that. Well, I don't know. We just stopped seeming like a loving couple. I know. We're both to blame for doing what so many people do and taking each other for granted over time. Yes, that's probably true, but that's not the only reason, Terry. We hardly ever made love. Remember how it was in the beginning? God, we couldn't keep our hands off each other, especially when we were working on the Continental. Damn, we had so much fun working on that together. He smiled again, and this time he had to fight back tears as memories came flooding back. I agree, Terry replied. We were a real team. Remember the first time we washed the car? Brett smiled. Yeah, but as I recall, we didn't actually wash the car. We were too busy hosing each other down. Yeah, she confirmed with a laugh. I don't think I ever laughed as hard as I did when I was a little girl. Yeah, we had a great time, that's for sure. But as soon as we were done with the car, we started drifting apart. It wasn't right after we finished. We still had a good time after that. I remember when we pulled up to your mom's house and saw her face when she saw it. Yeah, she recognized it right away. It was just like with my dad's car when he died. She even had tears in her eyes when we took her out for a walk, Terry recalled. You're right, Brett admitted. We had a lot of fun in that car even after it was finished. For a moment, he remembered that time with tenderness. So, where did it all go wrong? Terry interrupted his thoughts. You said you had all the answers when you brought up divorce, he replied sharply. Brett, I just said what we were both thinking at the time. Come on, neither of us worked on this marriage. It seemed like the reality of life always got in the way. You became more interested in your friends than in me. Terry, I only spent so much time with them because you checked on Audrey every chance you got. I was tired of being home alone, so I started seeing other men. What did you expect? I don't know, she replied. I knew we had problems, but I didn't know what to do. I started going to Audrey's all the time, so I wouldn't have to think about our marriage falling apart. It was my escape. Well, it seemed to me that you were losing interest in me and in our marriage. I always thought it was because you didn't love me anymore. We started making love less and less. And when we did, it seemed like the passion wasn't there anymore. Terry thought about his words. Yes, I remember that I wasn't as excited about love as I was in the beginning. I don't really understand why, but I know it's not because I don't love you anymore. It just seemed old and routine, like we were doing it because that's what married people are supposed to do. But neither of us had the same strong feelings for each other as we did in the beginning. We needed to find a way to spice things up a little, to keep things fresh. So why didn't we do that? Brett asked. Good question. If we had, we probably wouldn't be here, a month after our marriage broke up. They both sipped their coffee, and there was a pause. Brett thought deeply. He wondered what it all meant. At first, she said she wanted to talk to him about saving the Continental, but they ended up talking mostly about their marriage. He began to think that she didn't need the car at all, that it was just an excuse to get him out of there. Terry thought so too, but not about the car. She needed to know if they were doing the right thing by getting divorced. She knew how she felt, but how did her husband feel? Did he want to go through with the divorce? Did he still love her? She decided the only way to find out was to ask him. Brett, do you still love me? Come on, Terry, we've already discussed this. No, we haven't. We talked about how our lives had grown apart. We talked about our different interests. We talked about how to live without each other. Hell, we talked about everything except how we still felt about each other. Before the divorce is final, I need to know if you still love me. Since Brett decided to get a divorce, he has spent many nights in his apartment mourning the love he lost. Over the course of several years, Terry and Brett had gone from being a loving married couple to two people living separately in the same house. They rarely argued, but the spark between them had died. One evening, Terry brought up divorce. She said she thought they should both live their own lives. He agreed, but then realized he had made a terrible mistake. He missed her terribly and still loved her. But it was too late. The divorce would soon be final. She had already been on several dates that he knew about, and possibly more. She was already moving on. What should he do? Reveal himself and admit that he still loved her? Was he really going to humiliate himself to give her that satisfaction? Was that the price he had to pay to get his car back? Damn it. He had always been honest with her before the divorce. Should he be any less honest with her now? Terry, I sometimes think that, well, maybe we're making a mistake, but I know how you feel. Damn it, Brett, stop telling me how I feel. It's clear from our conversation that you have no idea how I feel, she said firmly. Oh, really? Okay. Then what do you feel? I love you. At those words, his breath caught in his throat. For the first time in a long time, his heart seemed to stop. You love me? He repeated with a smile. Yes, Brett, I still love you. But you're seeing other people. People say you're moving on. That's how it is. Who? What people? Have you been spying on me? No, of course not, but, well, people. People we both know, friends, you know. I was told that you were seeing someone, that you were already looking for someone new, and they advised me to do the same. Terry sighed, disappointed by their advice. Why did people always meddle in other people's business? Why had she gone to them with everything she had? Yes, I dated him a little, just a little. I went on 3 dates with 3 different guys. She saw the question in his eyes that she knew he wouldn't ask, but that needed to be answered. No, Brett, I didn't sleep with any of them. I won't say I wasn't tempted because I was. I'm sure you don't need to tell me that 5 months is a long time, and to be honest, before every date, I thought there was a good chance I'd bring him home, but... She took another sip of coffee and bowed her head thoughtfully. She wanted to say what she was going to say in a way that would matter, so that he would understand that she was sincere. By the end of each date, I didn't want to sleep with any of them anymore. In fact, after the 3rd date, I realized there was only one man I wanted in my bed. She looked him in the eyes. It's you, Brett. You're the only man I want in my bed. Brett couldn't believe his ears. He had dreamed of them being together again, but he never thought it would actually happen. He was sure he had lost her forever. And then it dawned on him. Did she really want to stay married, or was she offering him friends with benefits? He had to find out. Are you saying you don't want a divorce? A broad smile spread across her face. I think we should sleep together and talk tomorrow. What do you think? She was right about one thing. 5 months was a long time. He still wasn't sure what she was offering him. All he knew for sure was that she was offering him sex, a chance to make love to her again, and he wasn't going to turn that down. Brett followed his wife into the bedroom. Yes, she was still his wife, at least for now. He was going to make love to her like a wife. When they reached the bed, he turned and looked into her eyes. There was a desire in them that he hadn't seen in a long time. The foreplay was short. That night, they both slept more soundly than ever, as if the word divorce had never been uttered. Brett heard the joyful singing of birds outside his bedroom window. He opened his eyes and saw the morning sun. For a moment, he looked at the white ceiling and realized he was in his home. This wasn't a dream, he thought. This really happened. He looked around and saw his wife staring at him intently. A broad smile lit up her beautiful face. "Good morning, handsome," she whispered. "Good morning, beautiful," he replied with an equally broad smile. She snuggled up to him, and he held her tightly. "We'll split the continent," he said. "What?" Her heart suddenly stopped. Was he still thinking about divorce? "Yes. I'll teach you how to drive, and you'll drive sometimes, and I'll drive sometimes." He looked back and saw the frightened expression on her face. He kissed her to calm her down. "I'll teach you to drive on one condition. Never, ever say the word divorce again. Not now, not ever." He felt the tension in her body melt away. "Everything will be fine, big boy," she promised. "Okay, first thing tomorrow morning, I'll call the lawyer and tell him everything is off." Terry decided that a simple thank you wasn't enough to express her gratitude. That morning, they had enough time to not make love, as they needed to pick up some of his things. That evening, they both renewed their vows. They held hands, looked into each other's eyes, and pledged their devotion, love, honor, and respect. They promised never to take each other for granted and to work on their marriage every day. They both knew how close they had come to losing what was most precious to them, and they were determined never to let that happen again. On Monday, Terry was getting ready for dinner with her best friend, Audrey. Audrey was happy to see a smile on her friend's face for the first time in months. "Judging by that smile, your little trick with the car worked?" she asked cheerfully. "Like magic," Terry replied, beaming as she sat down. "What did he say?" "That he loves me," she replied. "He's calling his lawyer today to stop the divorce." "Oh, Terry, that's wonderful." "Audrey, I've been trying to figure out how we got to the point of divorce, but I just can't. I think we just grew tired of each other. Maybe we needed this to wake us up. You know what they say, you don't know what you've got until it's gone. Well, I'm glad you both realized that before you lost it." "Yeah, me too," Terry replied with relief. "Although I don't understand why you took the car. Why didn't you just call him and say you wanted to talk about the divorce?" "Because I wasn't sure how he felt. I didn't know if he still loved me. If I had called him and said I wanted to talk about divorce, he might have just rejected me, and I wanted to talk to him in person. I knew the best way to make sure he wouldn't come was to threaten to leave him the car." "Well, I'm very happy for you, Terry." "Thanks, Audrey. But tell me, if it hadn't worked out, if Brett had said he wanted a divorce, would you have let him keep the car?" "Are you kidding? I would never take that car away from him. It's like a child to him. I couldn't hurt someone I loved like that, even if he didn't love me." Brett and Terry kept their promises. They worked on their marriage every day. They went on dates not once a month, but whenever they felt like it. Sometimes it was dinner and dancing or a show, sometimes the theater, and sometimes they just parked by the lake and kissed in the backseat of the Continental. 3 years after they started dating, Brett's mother died. He and Terry handled all the funeral arrangements together, and she never left his side during that difficult time. A couple of weeks after the funeral, they cleaned out his house to sell it. Terry looked through papers, receipts, and old documents that his mother had kept for years, while Brett packed up family heirlooms. "Brett," she called from the bedroom, "could you bring me the registration card for the Continental?" Registration card? What for? I just want to check something, she replied. A few minutes later, Brett handed his wife the Continental's registration number. Honey, you always say that this car is like your father's car, right? Yes, he replied, still a little embarrassed. No, you're wrong. It's not just that, she said, picking up the registration card and holding it up to another piece of paper. It's the same car. He doubted his wife's words. Listen, honey, your mom has kept your dad's license plate number all these years. They're the same. Brett took both pieces of paper from her and compared them. She was right. The numbers were the same. His legs buckled, and he sat down on the bed next to his wife. You once told me that there was something about the Continental that made you want that car. I always thought it was just because it reminded you of your father, but it was more than that, my dear. I truly believe that your father led you to that car. It was his way of reaching out to you. On the way back to Illinois, they stopped at the cemetery. The remains of flowers were still scattered across his mother's freshly dug grave. Nearby was his father's old but well-kept grave. Brett hugged his loving wife and said gratefully, Look, Dad, nodding toward the Continental Park just a few feet away. I remember how much you loved that car, and I promise I'll take good care of it. I hope you know how much happiness and joy it brought Terry and me. He paused to wipe a tear from his eye. Take care of Mom. She loved you and honored your memory until the day you were reunited. They looked at each other. She hugged him, rested her head on his chest, and held him tightly. I love you so much, Brett. I love you too, my darling, he said, gently pressing his cheek against her forehead. March 1st, 2021. Honey, don't forget that I'm having dinner with some friends from work tonight, my wife said as she was rushing out the door to go to work. Sure, I'll make something for dinner. Have a good time, sweetheart, I replied. I'm Tom Matthews, and my wife Barbara is 32 years old. We have 2 grown children, our son Robert and his wife Teresa, and our daughter Elizabeth. I have a wonderful family, and I consider myself an incredibly lucky man. However, things are not what they seem. March 8th. Barbara, who usually got up early to get ready for work, was still in bed. It was 7:30 a.m. Honey, are you okay? It's already 7:30, I asked. No, I feel very sick. I think I'll have to call work and say I'm sick, she replied. I called her office and told them she wasn't feeling well and that I would let them know how she was feeling. Since the pandemic broke out, we have revised our approach to work to ensure maximum safety. Barbara worked for a large local construction company that, despite the pandemic, still had many projects. She went to work every day, wore a mask, and tried to maintain social distance. In a couple of weeks, we were scheduled to get vaccinated. I work in the finance department of a large lending company and am able to work from home. My job is to prepare financial data for the board of directors, process reports required by the State Corporate Commission, and prepare tax information for the IRS. The work isn't interesting, but it pays well, and thanks to Barbara's job as assistant to the president of a construction company, we lived comfortably. I've been working since I graduated from college for 33 years now. Barbara handles all the affairs of the company president. His name is Jonathan Reynolds. Barbara has been working there for 25 years, starting after our youngest went to school. We both liked our jobs and the people we worked with. Barbara took her temperature, and it was 38 degrees. Honey, maybe you should get tested for COVID, I said. Oh no, there have been several cases of COVID at work. I think I'll go get tested. Yes, that's a good idea. I'll sleep in another room until you get the results. Although if you have COVID, then I probably have it too. She went to a local pharmacy where she got tested. The results would be ready in 2 days. March 10th, 2021. I got the results, I've got it, Barbara said. I'm so sorry, honey, but at least you know. You need to call the office and tell them because you've been in contact with them. Who did you have dinner with last week? They might need to get tested, too. Just Sally and the new girl, Regina. We invited her over to welcome her to the company. I'll call them. At least I'm working from home, so I can be your nurse. I'll call our doctor and ask what he recommends. Get into bed, I'll make you breakfast. The doctor was very kind, but basically just told me to give Barbara vitamin C, B3, zinc, and lots of fluids. The doctors also said that if Barbara had trouble breathing or developed a very high fever, we should take her to the emergency room. I called the kids to let them know what had happened and told them we would be okay. This pandemic has changed everything. Our lifestyle, work, schools, business, everything has become more difficult. But we have been lucky so far. March 14th, 2021. Barbara seemed to be feeling okay. She had a slight fever and was coughing very little. She was very tired, and I tried to cook her some of her favorite things. She had lost her sense of taste, but that wasn't a big deal because I'm not as good a cook as she is. I started to feel sick. Barbara, I think I need to get tested. Last night, I woke up in the middle of the night drenched in sweat. I think I have a fever. I got tested and will find out the results in a couple of days. March 15th, 2021. I was feeling worse, but the test results hadn't come back yet. I was sure I had it. I could barely manage to make breakfast and lunch. My sister, who lives next door, said she would bring us dinner. Bless my family. They are always there for me when I need them. March 16th, 2021. My test results came back positive. I'm in bed and can barely get up. Barbara seems to be getting better. I've learned how to order groceries online for home delivery. It helps, but it's still hard to make a proper dinner. March 17th, 2021. People from our church found out that Barbara and I have COVID. Some brought food and drinks. It's nice to know that when you're sick, people come to help. It's amazing. I have no energy. My temperature isn't going up, but I feel very tired. Barbara seems to be getting better. She has a little more energy. March 18th, 2021. Barbara didn't have a fever today and is feeling a little better. She's waiting for me now. I asked her how she thinks she got COVID, but she said she doesn't know. The phone rang, and I answered. It was Sally from Barbara's work. She said she was calling to see how we were doing. I thanked her and asked how she was. She said everything was fine. Then she said she hadn't left the house in a couple of months. This surprised me because Barbara had told me that she had gone out to dinner with Sally and a new employee named Regina. I thanked Sally for her concern and asked if anyone else at the office had COVID. She said that Jonathan had been in quarantine for 14 days and was feeling fine, but would be returning to work in a few days. I feel out of sorts. Not only did I get sick with coronavirus, but my wife lied to me. I didn't think she had ever lied to me in all the time we've known each other. What do I do now? I feel terrible, but I need to know what's going on. March 19th, 2021. I didn't sleep all night. I had to find out. I sat down at the computer and decided to check our credit cards to see if there had been any transactions. Barbara and I had our own credit cards, but she paid hers and I paid mine. I rarely check the balance because we mostly paid our bills every month. I had set them up so we could check them because someone had hacked our accounts a few years ago. My hands were shaking as I looked through her account. Oh my God. There it was. On March 1st, she had a charge at the Hampton Inn. The Hampton Inn is 20 miles away from us. That same evening, she had dinner with friends. I was furious. What should I do? How could she do this to me? She was still at home, but she was feeling better. When she saw me, she knew something was wrong. She said I looked worse than I did in the morning. I told her I wanted to stay in bed. I went to my son's room and got into bed. She brought me soup, but I wasn't hungry. She tried to talk to me, but I kept acting like I wanted to sleep. She closed the door so I could sleep. I still love her with all my heart, but this is awful. I can't live without her, and I have to tell her that I know. It hurts so much. Even though I feel terrible, I'm going to need Barb's help. I can't recover from COVID without her. March 20th, 2021. I woke up with a high fever. Barbara brought me juice and a bagel. I really didn't feel like eating, but I knew I had to. She sat next to me while I ate. "Barbara, how long have you been sleeping with Jonathan Reynolds?" Her face turned pale and she asked, "Why would you think that?" "I only love you." "Well, I found out that you two were at the Hampton Inn on the same night you told me you were having dinner with Sally and your new girlfriend. By the way, Sally denies she was with you that night." Barbara just burst into tears and ran out of the room. At least she knows I know. This should be interesting. When I found out, I decided right away that I was going to talk to her. I'm not the type to drag things out, follow her around, or spy on her. That's the one thing Barbara has always known about me. When she was caught lying, she always confessed. Funny how that works. Later, Barbara quietly returned to the room. "Are you ready to tell me about it?" She started crying and begging for forgiveness. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Just tell me the truth, please. That's all I want. Be honest. I think I deserve it." "Yes, my love, you deserve it. There are no excuses. You are the love of my life. I never thought otherwise. I know I did a terrible thing, but you are the only one I want to spend the rest of my life with." "Well, where did our marriage go wrong?" She cried again and said, "It was just a fling." "Well, I wish you had told me or asked me. I would have done anything for you, and you know that. I always wanted to try something new in bed and tried to suggest it to you, but you always rejected me. Why?" Barbara sniffed and said, "When Jonathan started spending more time with me, I became more relaxed. He's a very intelligent and handsome man, although not as handsome as you." I rolled my eyes. "I've worked for him for over 20 years. We know each other well and feel comfortable in each other's company. We just grew closer over the years. I've never criticized you. We both respect you, and I love you to death." That's a nice way of putting it. I'm sure you both had a good laugh at my naivety. "No, never. I know I did a terrible thing, but you're my rock and my love, and no one can change that." "How long have you two been seeing each other? I'm tired of being in the dark. Just tell me the truth, I swear to God." "I will. It was 3 years ago." "I can't believe it. You've been sleeping with him for 3 years. I'm such a fool." "No, you're not a fool. We probably did it once a month on average." "Okay. I didn't think you could make me feel any worse. Please leave and let me sleep. We'll talk tomorrow." Barbara got up to kiss me, but I turned away. I told her to leave. She was crying when she closed the door. March 21st, 2021. I've never felt so alone. No children, no wife. I can't see them, and I don't want to see her. I think about all the times I was at a party with Jonathan while he was sleeping with my wife. I feel so stupid. What surprises me is that I can't remember a single time when he didn't respect me or make me feel humiliated. I'm so sad, and I feel so bad. She knocks on the door and asks what I want for breakfast. "I'm not hungry. Just give me some time. I'll bring you the vitamins you need to take. You need them." She leaves, and I try to go back to sleep. Barbara returns to the room. Barbara always likes to explain everything. She always tries to justify her decisions. This should be interesting to hear. "Tom, from the moment I met you in college, I loved you. I know it took you a little longer to open up to me, but I was yours forever. I made a huge mistake, kept making it, and tried to deny it. There are no excuses. I was selfish and terrible. You don't deserve any of this. I feel awful. I called Jonathan and handed in my resignation. You're the only one I want, and I always will be. What did Jonathan say? Did he try to talk you out of it? Yes, until I told him you knew about it. Then he realized that after all this, it would be impossible to work together. Let's say we get divorced. You'll need this job. We both make good money, but after splitting everything in half, things will change very quickly. She started crying and left the room. Great conversation, I thought to myself. I closed the door and locked it. I didn't want to talk anymore today. March 22nd, 2021. I woke up feeling even worse than the day before. I still had a high fever and my pajamas were soaked with sweat. Barbara was feeling better, but I seemed to be in the same state. Barbara knocked on the door and asked to come in. I said, "Give me a few more minutes." I got up, opened the door, and she came in with my medicine, juice, and breakfast. She wanted to continue our conversation. "Honey, I know I've ruined you and betrayed you. I feel so bad. But please, I beg you, don't divorce me. I'll live like a slave in the basement if I have to." What's wrong with you? You had an affair for 3 years without thinking that I might find out. And now suddenly you've become religious and are ready to change your life. I don't know who's stupider, me, because I believed you for the last 3 years, or you, because you thought I would just forgive you. I'll go to a psychologist. I swear I'll do anything to save our marriage. It takes 2 to save a marriage, dear, and I'm not sure I want that. Please don't say that. I know I can be a loving wife to you. I'll do anything to make you forgive me. Just let me fight this illness and regain my strength. I ate breakfast and rolled over to the other side. I have no strength. I feel exhausted. We go through the day without talking much. At this point, I don't know what I want. I just want to get better. The craziest thing is that I still love her, but I'm too tired to fight for her. If she still wants me, maybe there's a chance to get things back. If she wants him, then no way. I feel like I've been betrayed by someone who always supported me. Now I know that's not true. Will I ever be able to trust her again? I wish I felt better so I could get away for a while and think things through. March 23rd, 2021. I woke up this morning feeling stiff. My back probably hurts from lying in bed for so long. I need to get up and walk around, but I'm too weak. Going to the bathroom and walking are hard work. Barbara made me a special breakfast of omelet, which I love, with bacon and toast. I wish I could taste it. I know it smells delicious. I try to eat, but I don't really want to. She begs me to eat and says she'll make anything I want. I guess a one-way ticket to hell is too much. She says she made an appointment for us with a psychologist who was highly recommended by Sally, who went through a difficult period a few years ago. She and her husband loved this psychologist and thought he could help us too. I asked, "Barbara, does Sally know about you and Jonathan?" "Oh, no, we were very careful." Sally is very perceptive. I'm sure she guessed something was going on because it's almost impossible to hide a 3-year affair. Tom, I'm so sorry. I feel disgusted with myself for hurting you so much. I want you to know that Jonathan is not the best lover. Not better than you and not more than you. He's just different, and I did the wrong thing. He feels guilty too, and I know he wasn't interested in me except as a fling. He dates lots of women all over town and couldn't be faithful even if he wanted to. I'm so sorry. I love you so much and will do anything to get you back. Please give me a chance. If he was making you feel bad, why did you stay with him for 3 years? You must have found some kind of comfort in it. Did you ever come home after being with him and have sex with me? No, never, I swear. I would never do that. I never brought him to our house. Okay. I couldn't have handled it if you two had defiled our bedroom, where we conceived our children. Did you ever do anything we didn't do? Once he wanted to tie me up, but I was too scared. It's not my fantasy, and I told him so. Wow, that was very noble of you. You have principles. They're just incredibly low. Is he a good lover? Why do you need to know? You're the best anyway. It was just a terrible mistake. I can't believe I did it. I was just entertainment for him. He dates a lot of women. Forget about him. You're all I need, and I want you to get better so we can move on. I'll never forgive myself for this. How would you feel if I had been seeing someone else for 3 years? What would you have done? I would have been hurt and very angry. Honey, I don't blame you for your feelings. What I did was terrible, and you deserve better. I beg you, please forgive me. I need to rest. Good night. I closed my eyes so she would leave. March 24th, 2021. This morning I woke up with severe back pain. I also had difficulty breathing. It was 5 a.m., but I felt like I needed to go to the emergency room. I got dressed and got in my car to drive myself to the hospital. I knew Barbara would want to come with me, but she wouldn't be allowed in because I would be in isolation. I went to the emergency room. The nurses and staff saw me and quickly hooked me up to an oxygen monitor. I feel like it's getting harder to breathe. It hurts to breathe in and out. They did an EKG, then a chest X-ray, and then a CT scan to check my lungs. I'm lying on a stretcher in the emergency room waiting for someone to tell me something. The staff here is especially nice. The nurse told me they're looking at the charts and will let me know as soon as they have anything. The emergency doctor comes into the room and tells me that I have blood clots in my lungs. He adds that I will be admitted to the hospital and put on an IV drip, and that I will be given blood thinners. I feel better knowing what is causing the pain. The nurse changes me into a hospital gown and moves me to a COVID ward. I asked for a phone, and they brought me one. Surprisingly, I had forgotten my cell phone, which I usually always carry with me. I called home to tell Barbara what was happening. She started crying, thinking I had abandoned her. She begged me to forgive her and said she should have taken me to the hospital. I told her she wasn't allowed in the hospital, so she shouldn't worry. She kept crying on the phone. I told her I had to hang up. I don't know what's worse, her crying on the phone, or the fact that I can't breathe. I've seen 4 nurses, 2 nursing assistants, 3 doctors, and 4 technicians, and I feel like they really care about me. They're giving me food and medicine through an IV. It's easier to breathe, although I still need oxygen. These people are good. Now they want me to eat, but I have no appetite. I ordered soup for lunch and chicken and rice for dinner. Everyone says the food in the hospital is bad, but I can't taste anything, so it's not a problem. Barbara called me back, apologized again, and said she had talked to the children and told them I was in the hospital. My son wanted to visit me, but she told him no one could see me. I love my children and miss them, as we haven't seen each other during the pandemic. When this is all over, we're going to have a big party for the whole family in our backyard. I settle in for the night, but at midnight, 2 a.m., and 4 a.m., they check my vitals, and at 6 a.m., they take my blood. It seems like I get a lot of rest, but I hardly sleep. They really care about their patients. The nurses have to wear masks, face shields, everything is covered, and gloves. I don't know how they can stand it. They are amazing. March 25th, 2021. After giving blood at 6 a.m., I doze off for a while, but wake up when breakfast is brought in. It's pancakes with bacon, which I love, but I'm not very hungry. I manage to eat almost everything. The phone rings, and Barbara is crying again and asking how I am. I tell her that I think I'm better, but I'm still very tired. She keeps apologizing and says she would like to see me. I believe her. Barbara has her flaws, but she is also very compassionate toward those who are suffering or sick. She is usually the first person from church to bring food, a card, or groceries. I know that deep down she feels terrible and understands that she and Jonathan infected me with COVID. I'm too sick to make decisions about our marriage or our future, but I have a lot to think about in the next few weeks. The doctors come to tell me how the treatment is going and how my vitals are improving. I can feel it because I'm not gasping for air when I get up to go to the bathroom. Every little thing helps. I talk to my children, my daughter, son, and daughter-in-law. They cheer me up, and I teared up when they told me how important I am to them. The first thought that comes to my mind after I'm discharged is what to do about my relationship with my wife. Just walk away or try to work things out. The children will feel it too. It's not an easy decision. But her betrayal was deep and strong, and it hurts. Barbara called back and said she had talked to most of our family members, and they all care about me and love me. I asked her, "Barbara, how do you think Jonathan got the coronavirus and then infected you and then me?" She cries and says that she thinks Jonathan got it during a trip to the West Coast to visit a manufacturer and didn't know he had it until he infected everyone else. "When did you think you got it?" I hoped it wasn't Jonathan, but he was the only one who could have been infected. She started crying again, and I hung up. I was very tired, but all I could do was doze. I turned on the TV, but I only wanted to watch something funny or sports. Everything else depressed me. Now even sports had become political. I thought, can't I just play a game? I need to sleep. I'm very tired. I'll think about it in the morning. Epilogue, March 26, 2021. The code blue alarm sounds and nurses and doctors rush into the ward. A patient is suffocating. Thomas Robert Matthews died at 1:45 a.m. on March 26, 2021, from COVID due to a blood clot in his lung. He could not be saved. March 31st, 2021. The church was filled to capacity. People outside tried to hear part of the service. People came from all over the world to say goodbye to Tom and comfort his wife and family. It was a beautiful early spring day, and it was nice to see how much Tom meant to so many people. He probably didn't even remember all the good things he did for so many people, but they remembered him. His daughter, son, and daughter-in-law were at the ceremony. His wife was almost catatonic. She was given medication and told to stay home. I don't know how many people knew about her secret, as Tom didn't tell anyone before he died, and it's unlikely that anyone else knew. Epilogue. Barbara lived for another 22 years, but never left the house and became a recluse. She didn't have to go back to work because Tom had insurance and investments. She was never the same again. Her only happiness was being with her children, grandchildren, and great-grandson. She was devastated by Tom's loss, but she was grateful for the long years they had spent together. Incidentally, Jonathan Reynolds sat in the back row at the funeral, crying. He wasn't alone. Many others were crying, too. Tom had touched more lives than he could ever have imagined.